there is a question that haunts everyone who begins to awaken to the power of consciousness. What about the past? What about the wounds I carry, the patterns I cannot seem to break, the memories that shaped me before I even knew I had a choice? And here is where two systems diverge dramatically. One system says, go backward, recover the lost memory, descend into the buried life. You were a priestess in Atlantis, a soldier in Rome, a child abandoned in a past you cannot consciously recall. Find that moment, relive it, release it. Only then will you be free. The other system, Neville's system, says something else entirely. It says, you don't need the past. You never did. The past is not a fixed record. It is an imaginal construct, and you are its author. Revise it, rewrite it, not symbolically, not metaphorically, actually. One method digs, the other rebuilds. One assumes the past is real and must be healed. The other knows the past is imaginal and can be changed. So which is true? And if Neville is right, why does past life regression work for so many people? Why do they feel relief, release, transformation? That is what we are here to explore. Welcome to Neville Goddard Universe, a space where we take the teachings of Neville Goddard and hold them up to the great esoteric and mystical traditions of the world, not to dilute them, but to see them more clearly. To recognize that what Neville taught was not new, but ancient, not isolated, but universal. And in that recognition, to deepen our own practice. Today we are looking at one of the most striking divergences, and yet, underneath it, one of the most profound convergences, between Neville's teaching and the spiritual technology of past life regression. On the surface, these two approaches seem to contradict each other completely. Past life regression assumes the past is real, fixed, and causative. Neville insists the past is imaginal, revisable, and subordinate to present consciousness. And yet, people heal through both methods. People change. They are set free. So what is really happening? How can two systems that seem so opposed both produce transformation? And more importantly, which one is true? By the end of this episode, you will see that Neville's method does not contradict past life regression. It transcends it. It accomplishes everything regression claims to do, but without the need to dig into the past at all. And in seeing that, you will understand something even more radical, that the past you think you remember is not a fact. It is a story. And you are the one telling it. If this kind of exploration speaks to you, if you sense there is something beneath the surface of these systems waiting to be understood, then stay with us. A like or a subscription keeps this work alive, and it lets me know there are others walking this path. I'm grateful for every mind that joins us here. Now, let's begin. Neville Goddard's teaching on the past is one of his most misunderstood and most liberating insights. In his 1954 lecture, No One to Change But Self, Neville tells a story. A woman comes to him in despair. She has been estranged from her daughter for years. The relationship is cold, distant, filled with old resentments and unspoken wounds. She wants to heal it, but every time they speak, the same patterns repeat, the same arguments, the same pain. Neville does not tell her to confront her daughter. He does not tell her to process the past, to unearth the original wound, to go back and relive the moment everything went wrong. He tells her to revise it. He tells her to go back in imagination to a moment when the relationship was still intact, or to imagine it as she wished it had been, and to replay that memory until it feels real. To do this not once, but repeatedly. To overwrite the old story with a new one. To change the past in imagination, and then to let the present conform to that revision. She does it, and within weeks the daughter calls. The tone is different. The coldness is gone. The relationship heals, not because the past was processed, but because it was revised. Now, here is what Neville is saying, and it is so radical that most people miss it entirely. He is not saying, pretend the past didn't happen. He is not saying, suppress the memory. He is saying, the past you remember is not a fact. It is a construction. It is an imaginal event, held in place by your attention and your feeling. And because it is imaginal, it is revisable. The past does not cause the present. Consciousness causes both. This is the inversion that changes everything. Most of us believe the past is fixed, and that we are shaped by it. We believe that who we are today is the result of what happened to us yesterday, or 10 years ago, or in childhood. We believe that, to heal, we must go backward, into therapy, into regression, into memory, and excavate the wound. Neville says, no. The past is not behind you. It is within you, and it is alive only because you are imagining it now. Listen to how he puts it in that same lecture. The past and the future are only in the imagination. The eternal now contains them both. Do you hear what he is saying? The past is not gone. It is present, as an imaginal state you are occupying right now. And because it is present, it is changeable. This is not metaphor. Neville is not speaking poetically. He means it literally. The memory you carry of your father's anger, your mother's neglect, your first heartbreak, your greatest failure. That memory is not a recording. It is a living, imaginal act. You are performing it now, in consciousness. And you can perform a different one. In his 1948 series, Neville goes even further. He says, if you are dissatisfied with your present expression in life, the first thing to do is to revise the past. Revise it in such a way that you would have liked it to have been, for in so doing, you will bring about a change in your present. Now let us be very clear about what this means in practice. It does not mean you deny what happened. It does not mean you gaslight yourself. It means you recognize that what happened is less important than what you have imagined about what happened. The event itself is neutral. The meaning you assigned to it, the conclusion you drew about yourself, about others, about the world, that is what shapes you. And that meaning is imaginal. It is a story. And stories can be rewritten. Let us take a concrete example. Suppose you carry a memory of being humiliated in front of your peers as a child. Perhaps a teacher mocked you. Perhaps you froze during a presentation. Perhaps you were laughed at. And ever since, you have carried the belief, I am not safe when I am seen. I cannot trust myself in public. That belief did not come from the event. It came from the imaginal act you performed after the event, the decision you made about what it meant. And you have been repeating that imaginal act ever since, every time you recall the memory, every time you avoid speaking up, every time you feel that old contraction in your chest. Neville's method is to go back to that moment, not in therapy, not in analysis, but in imagination, and to revise it. To replay the scene as you wish it had been. To see yourself calm, articulate, met with warmth. To hear the laughter turn to applause. To feel the teacher's encouragement instead of mockery. And here is the critical part. You do this not to pretend, but to perform a new imaginal act. To replace the old story with a new one. To shift the meaning. To change the conclusion you drew about yourself. And when you do this, when you revise the memory with feeling, with sensory vividness, in the state akin to sleep that Neville calls SATS, the past changes. Not hypothetically, actually, because the past is not a fact, it is a feeling, and feeling is the secret. Now, you might ask, but didn't the event really happen? Didn't the teacher really mock me? Didn't my father really leave? Didn't I really fail? Neville would say, in one sense, yes. In the same sense that a dream really happens while you are dreaming it. But upon waking, you do not say, that dream is still controlling me. You recognize it as imaginal. And Neville is telling you to wake up, to recognize that your waking life is also imaginal, and that you are its author, not its victim. This is why, in his later lectures, Neville rejected the literal interpretation of reincarnation. Not because he denied that people experience past life memories, he acknowledged they do, but because he recognized those memories as imaginal, not historical. They are not evidence of a former life. They are symbols, metaphors, imaginal dramas. Your consciousness is staging to explain present patterns. And if they are imaginal, they can be revised just as easily as any childhood memory. You do not need to recover the past. You need to revise it. Now let us turn to past life regression. And let us approach it with respect, because it is a genuine spiritual technology, and it has brought relief and transformation to countless people. Past life regression operates on a simple premise, that many of our present fears, phobias, relationship patterns, and emotional wounds are not products of this life, but carryovers from previous incarnations. The method is to guide the client into a deeply relaxed state, often hypnotic or trance-like, and to allow memories to surface from what appear to be earlier lifetimes. The client might recall being drowned, betrayed, abandoned, executed. They relive the moment. They release the charge. And very often, the present symptom dissolves. The relief is real. The transformation is real. I am not here to dismiss that. But Neville would ask, what is actually happening in that process? Is the client truly remembering a past life? Or are they engaging in an imaginal drama that gives symbolic form to a present fear? And then, by reliving and releasing it, they are revising the imaginal structure that was holding the fear in place. In other words, is past life regression healing the past, or is it revising the story the client has been telling about why they feel the way they feel? Neville's answer is clear. In his 1963 lecture, The Pearl of Great Price, he says, all stories of the past, whether they are called history or memory or past lives, are imaginal. They are not facts. They are states of consciousness. Do you see the implication? If a past life memory is imaginal, then it is not ontologically different from a childhood memory, or a dream, or a fantasy. It is a story your consciousness is telling. And like any story, it can be rewritten. This is not to say that past life regression does not work. It does work, because it allows the client to externalize the wound, to dramatize it, to give it a shape and a narrative, and then to release it. It is a form of imaginal revision, whether the therapist realizes it or not. But, and here is the critical point, you do not need the mechanism of reincarnation for this process to succeed. You do not need to believe the memory is literal. You only need to engage it imaginally and revise it. Neville's method accomplishes the same result, but without the detour into past lives. It goes directly to the imaginal act. It does not ask, what happened to me in a previous life that caused this fear? It asks, what am I imagining now that perpetuates this fear, and how can I imagine differently? This is the shorter path, the cleaner cut. And it is grounded in a principle that appears not only in Neville's teaching, but in one of the oldest esoteric texts in existence, the Hermetic Kybalion. The fourth Hermetic principle states, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. But the seventh principle, the one that ties directly to revision, states, every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. But causation is not linear. Causation is mental. In other words, the past does not cause the present. Mind does. Consciousness does. Imagination does. This is what Neville means when he says, consciousness is the only reality. If consciousness is the only reality, then the past is not a separate, fixed thing that happened outside of consciousness. The past is a present imaginal act. It is what you are imagining now about what you think happened then. And if that is true, and I tell you, it is true, then you do not need to go back to a past life to heal. You do not even need to go back to childhood. You simply need to revise the imaginal act you are performing now. Now, let us be fair to the past life regression tradition. It has uncovered something real, the fact that consciousness is not bound by a single lifetime. Neville himself acknowledged this. He spoke of the journey of the soul as a spiral, as a series of awakenings, as a progressive unfolding of the one's self into awareness of itself as God. But he also insisted that the literal interpretation of reincarnation, where you were once Cleopatra or Napoleon or a peasant in medieval France, was a misreading of the symbolic truth. In his 1969 lecture, He is Dreaming Now, Neville says, "You are not a person who lived before and will live again. You are the eternal I Am, dreaming yourself into limitation and then awakening from it. The whole drama is imaginal." So when someone recalls a past life under regression, Neville would say, "You are not remembering history, you are creating a myth. And that myth is serving a purpose. It is giving form to a fear, a wound, a pattern, and by dramatizing it and releasing it, you are performing an act of revision. But you do not need the myth to perform the revision. You can go directly to the fear itself and revise the imaginal act that sustains it. This is why Neville's method is so powerful. It strips away the unnecessary layers. It does not require belief in reincarnation, or in recovered memory, or in any external cause. It requires only one thing, the willingness to imagine differently. And that, my friend, is the heart of the teaching. The thumbnail for this episode says, "REWRite your past." And now you see what that means. It does not mean pretend it didn't happen. It means recognize that the past is not what happened. It is what you have been imagining about what happened, and imagination is under your control. So you do not need to recover the past. You need to revise it. You do not need to relive the wound. You need to reimagine it. You do not need to dig backward through lifetimes. You need to rise upward into the recognition that you are the dreamer, and the dream can be changed. Now let us move from theory to practice, because Neville's teaching is not philosophy, it is method, and the method is revision. I am going to walk you through a revision protocol, step by step, exactly as Neville taught it. This is designed to rewrite a defining memory, something from your past that you believe has shaped you, limited you, hurt you. It could be a childhood wound. It could be a betrayal. It could be a failure. It does not matter. What matters is that you are still carrying it, and it is still shaping how you see yourself. First, choose the memory. Do not choose something trivial. Choose something that still has charge. Something that, when you recall it, you feel a contraction in your body, a tightness in your chest, a familiar ache. That charge is the sign that the memory is active, that it is still an imaginal act you are performing now. Second, find a quiet space and a time when you will not be disturbed. Sit or lie down, close your eyes, let your body relax. Neville called this the state akin to sleep, SATS. It is not full sleep, but it is not ordinary waking consciousness either. It is that borderland where imagination becomes vivid, where the inner world feels as real as the outer. Third, bring the memory to mind. But do not relive it as it happened. That would only reinforce the old imaginal act. Instead, you are going to revise it. You are going to replay the scene as you wish it had been. Let me give you an example. Suppose the memory is of your father dismissing something important to you when you were a child. You came to him excited, vulnerable, open, and he was distracted, dismissive, perhaps even mocking. And ever since, you have carried the belief, my enthusiasm is not welcome. I am too much. I should hide what matters to me. In revision, you do not relive that dismissal. You rewrite it. You see yourself as a child again, walking toward your father. But this time, when you speak, he stops what he is doing. He turns toward you. His face softens. He listens. He smiles. He says, "Tell me more." He is present. He is warm. You feel seen, valued, encouraged. You feel safe to be excited, to be vulnerable, to be yourself. You replay this scene in sensory detail. You see his face. You hear his voice. You feel the warmth of his attention. You let the new memory become as vivid and as real as the old one ever was. And here is the key. You do this with feeling. Not just with mental imagery, but with the feeling of relief, of being met, of being loved. Because feeling is what makes the imaginal act real. Feeling is the engine of revision. Neville says in The Law and the Promise, the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret of all successful prayer. So you are not just visualizing a new memory. You are feeling it. You are living in the feeling of it. You do this for several minutes, and then you let it go. You do not cling to it. You do not worry about whether it worked. You simply rest in the feeling, and then you release it, trusting that the imaginal act has been performed. And then, and this is important, you repeat it, not obsessively, not anxiously, but consistently. Every night before sleep, for a week, or 2 weeks, or however long it takes until the new memory feels more natural than the old one. You are not erasing the past. You are rewriting the imaginal act that has been shaping your present. And what happens next is extraordinary. You will begin to notice that the charge is gone. The old memory no longer contracts you. The belief it supported no longer feels true. And, most remarkably, your present circumstances will begin to reflect the revision. The relationship with your father may shift. Or if he is no longer living, your relationship with authority, with men, with your own enthusiasm, will shift. Because the world is yourself pushed out. This is not magic. This is mechanics. This is how consciousness works. Now, you might ask, what if I do not have a specific memory? What if I just have a pattern? A fear of rejection, a sense of unworthiness, but no clear origin? Neville would say, invent the origin. Create a scene that symbolizes the pattern, and then revise that scene. It does not matter whether it literally happened. What matters is that it gives form to the imaginal act you have been performing and allows you to perform a new one. This is why Neville's method transcends past life regression. Regression assumes you need to find the real cause, the actual event. Neville knows there is no actual event. There is only the imaginal act. And imaginal acts can be created, revised, and discarded at will. So you do not need to recover the past. You do not need a therapist to guide you backward through lifetimes. You do not need to dig. You simply need to imagine differently. Try it. Tonight. Choose one memory, revise it, and see what happens. I tell you, it works. Now let us step back and ask the larger question. What does all of this tell us about the nature of time, memory, and selfhood? If the past is revisable, if it is imaginal rather than factual, then what does that mean about the structure of reality itself? Neville's teaching points to something that mystics and quantum physicists alike have glimpsed, that time is not linear. It is not a river flowing in one direction, carrying the past away from us and bringing the future toward us. Time is psychological. It is imaginal. It is a construct of consciousness. In the mystical traditions of the East, particularly in Advaita Vedanta, there is a teaching that says, the past and the future are superimpositions upon the eternal now. The Sanskrit term is kalpana, imaginary construction. The past is a kalpana. The future is a kalpana. Only the present moment is real, and even the present moment is not a slice of time. It is the eternally present awareness in which all imaginal constructs appear. This is precisely what Neville means when he says, the eternal now contains the past and the future. You are not in time. Time is in you. And because time is in you, it is subject to you. It is not fixed. It is fluid. It is imaginal. This is what quantum theory hints at when it speaks of retrocausality, the notion that future events can influence past ones, that the act of observation collapses the wave function not only forward in time but backward as well. Neville would say, of course, because there is no objective past. There is only the past you are imagining now. And when you change what you imagine now, the past changes with it. This is not solipsism. This is not denial. This is recognition of the creative power of consciousness. You are not a passive observer of a fixed timeline. You are the author of the story you are living. And authorship means you can revise. This is why past life regression for all its power, is ultimately unnecessary. It treats the past as if it were a separate, objective realm that must be excavated and healed. But Neville knows the past is not separate. It is not objective. It is imaginal. It is here, now, in consciousness. And it can be changed here, now, in consciousness. So what does this mean for you practically? It means you are not bound by your history. You are not defined by your childhood, by your failures, by your wounds. You are not the sum of your memories. You are the one imagining the memories. And when you realize that, when you truly realize it, you are free. Free to revise, free to reimagine, free to become the person you have always sensed you could be, if only the past were different. Well, now you know, the past can be different, because it is imaginal, and imagination is under your control. So here we are, at the end of this exploration, and the title that brought you here was a promise, REW write your paste. Now you see that it is not a metaphor, it is a method. It is Neville's most radical and most practical gift. You do not need to journey backward through lifetimes. You do not need to recover buried trauma. You do not need a therapist to lead you into the depths. You need only to recognize that the past is imaginal, and that imagination is the creative power of God within you. If this episode has opened something for you, if it has shifted the way you see your own story, then I would be grateful if you would like this video or subscribe to the channel. It is a small gesture, but it tells me that this work matters, that these ideas are finding the minds they are meant to reach. And I am honored to walk this path with you. Revision is not erasure, it is transformation. It is the recognition that you are not the victim of the past, you are its author, and authors can rewrite. Tonight, before you sleep, choose one memory. Just one. It does not have to be the deepest wound. It can be small, recent, seemingly insignificant. And revise it. Replay it as you wish it had been. Let yourself feel the relief, the warmth, the rightness of the new version. Do not force it. Do not strain. Simply imagine with feeling and let it go. And then watch. Watch how the present shifts. Watch how the pattern loosens. Watch how the story you have been telling about yourself begins to change. Because the past is not behind you, it is within you. And within you, all things are possible. Neville knew this. The mystics knew this. And now, you know it too. The past is not a prison. It is a canvas. And you are holding the brush.